Shalom and welcome with Binderanovsky. So in this video I want to share a dream I had in month 10, day 21 of the Gregorian year 2023 with a recording timestamp. I recorded it 4:36. I never had the dream exactly, a little bit before. You may say, okay, it's just a dream. Just a dream. But remember also in scripture I mentioned some dreams with quite some very significant impacts. I had actually one incident at least that I can remember where it came to pass exactly the way I dreamed, which was absolutely not a nice one. However, as most of my dreams contains a lot of metaphors, I asked you to seek counsel from the Holy Spirit. If you're interested to know if this dream is more than just a night vision or a reflection of counting the sheep at night. So I will first describe the dream and then I'll give you a couple of questions instead of interpretation. If you receive anything from the Lord while I share it, or you can write it down and at the end you may feel free to share it. Sometimes people see this, some others see that, but don't fight against each other. Both can be correct. As dreams and prophecies often, or even mostly, contain multiple layers or multi-layer information. So, but now I go to the dream, and as usual, I describe dream in the present tense as if it happens right away. So the subject is war, and I'm on both sides. I don't know exactly which country, the side I'm at mainly, but it is against Russia, so which is named as the enemy. So the other side is not the NATO, nor America, nor EU, nor China, or whatever, just an unknown side against Russia. And that got named as the enemy. So me and many others prepare a trench where we will entrench ourselves. I see in a trench a section where we just fill with bundles of straw, put it or press them into the sides for whatever reason, I don't know. And the main battle is a big area where in the middle of that place, this is a big open space, and the whole thing is like a huge circle. It might be half a kilometer, could be symbolically, could be more, but maybe half a kilometer diameter of the circle, quite a big area, and it's flat, it's has a little whatever grass and soil, dirt. So the one half contains all the trenches, and where one trench is next to each other, or is this one trench around the half of the circle, and prepared for the soldiers, and I'm in one of those trenches. Yet I go at the same time around in the open field. We're into different sections of that circle. So in this circle are some corners. If this circle has some corners, if it's perfectly round or slightly oval, I can't say for sure. It's just too big. To prepare, they are in the middle of the open space, almost in the center, a bit more towards our half, shelves with bread. And these shelves are like, these chrome stands with, like from a bakery, but freestanding, maybe with wheels underneath. I'm not 100% sure, but possibly to push the bread with maybe 5-6 stacks of, and on each shelf there may be 6-7 loaves of bread, and the bread itself is all the same type, and they look very good. So each bread is around about 25 to 30 centimeters diameter and about 12 centimeters, maybe 14 centimeters high, and are sprinkled with sesame seed and crispy brown like a challah or a sabula that we used to say in Swedish and that I bake occasionally. On another place, there's a very interesting bread cutter. This is more from the place where I look in the center of our section towards the right side is like a wall, and there's a bread cutter that's built in the wall where someone press a bread through the wall, through the bread cutter. On the other side, he receives 2 loaves of bread. So not sliced, but just 2 bread and 2 complete bread. Even though he pushes 1 bread in and gets 2 out. So those bread are, from the type, the more like the form of these, it's like that long and, 30 centimeters long, like a toast bread. But not that kind of fluffy chemical white bread, but real good tasty bread and possibly full grain. So technically I would describe it that the knife slices the long way through the bread and 2 complete bread comes out on the other side. And this is, as much as I understand, something like for the provision of the soldiers in the trenches. I see this one person, 2 or 3 bread, and then pushing through that bread slicer, and then I move to another place and look around. And there are also loads of other groceries around. So in terms of food, very lush. So there's plenty of food, and most of it sits by these shelves with the bread, more in the center of the circle, a little bit towards our side. I'm wondering why they don't get distributed and just remain sitting there in the open space. So then comes the time when everyone is asked to go into the trenches. So the trench of where I am going in is different to all others. It basically contains 2 containers. It's made of 2 containers. This type of the 60-foot shipping container, where one side of them is open and both are attached or mounted on their end side together. And so like a C. And they're mounted, when there's ground, they're mounted halfway beneath into the soil, like they're sitting like this. So 50% up, 50% roughly. So maybe 1.5 meters below, so you can just stand in the container and look over the open area. And when we stand in these containers, you have a roof and can look out. The open section faces towards the circle where the war will go on at one point in time, and where also the enemy is expected to come in. So in the lower part of that containers, there are a couple of, towards the outside of the circle towards a couple of ventilation openings and also some emergency exits. Or these ventilation openings are the exits, just in case the plan fails. I have something to eat and possibly other people as well. But around bread and the other food remains standing near the center of the circle, visible for everyone. It is night, very dark. Wow. We had a serious storm here now. Hail and thunder. Oh, poor neighbor. He just walked home. Heavy pouring rain. Hopefully the light will stay on. Maybe not. If it drops off, you will know why. So it's night, very dark, but somehow, so back to the dream. It's night, very dark. Somehow I can see that the enemy arrives in that area. So in the second half of the circle, across our circle. And these are hundreds or even thousands of soldiers. So it's hard to count. They're coming from the right side, from my view, from the right side, walking into the left. And they're not so easy to recognize, like shadowy silhouette or so, but still clear enough to see. They're wearing not just typical military dress, green, grayish. The container I'm located is the only container, actually. The double container and maybe something like a headquarter or focal point. And these are in a blue color, like the typical darker bluish shipping container tone. Very, very common. The container is actually not in the middle of the, when you have the center, here the half, it's not in the middle, but it's like 20% off-centered, or 20 degrees off-centered. So the rest of the half circle is basically just simple trenches without luxury like straw ventilation or emergency exits or even a roof, just ordinary trenches. I'm now in that trench in the container watching of what is going on. So the soldiers of the enemy are now largely gathered already at the opposite side of the circle. And they're still walking in, still coming in from the right side towards the left. And then there is one person who looks like the Pope, at least from his clothing. He's the only one who is wearing white clothes. The others are typical green, grayish military uniforms, or the sprinkled stuff. So I can't see his face, but I see he has a staff and he stands not far away from the containers. I guess it's even not 10 meters away. The staff he holds in his hand is natural wood, like a stick from a tree or a young tree. It's about 180 to 2 meters long. And the diameter is perhaps 3 or 4 centimeters, where you can easily hold like the staff of Moshe, but it's not Moshe. The man in white, the Pope, is the speaker or representative of the enemy's army. I can't remember his words mainly, but he's pounding his staff on the ground. And the ground looked to me like dirt, soil with a bit trampled down grass, green grass in between. He speaks about 5 minutes by permanently stamping with his staff, and he turns his wording into the direction that he declares himself as God. I've heard it. As soon as he finished the speech, all the soldiers come towards him, or he stops stamping. All the soldiers come towards him into the middle of the circle. And this is the moment when all those in the trenches at once opened the fire. And the shooting lasted for about 1 or let's say 2 minutes, or even a bit less than a minute maybe. It's extremely noisy and with a lot of smoke. And these guns they have is, automatic. So it's not machine guns, but shooting bang, 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 very quickly, one shoot after the other. But enormously noisy, loud. Nothing for a sensitive musician's ear. And then there is silence until the dust settles for a while and no movement, nothing at all. So as I said, I myself are on both sides. What I see on the ground then, as everything is cleared up, are not soldiers, but slips of paper that looks like receipts of supermarkets, stuff like that. And the receipts with the dead have red paint around, like when you have your funeral thing, you have black, people make black corners around, so the receipt had red corners around. And they have the holes from the bullets, even one or more than one. I pick up my receipt because I have two, and yet I have two that belong to me. With those, I go back into the container and show them to the people that are there on my side, on their side, on this side. The bullets only hit the enemies, because of course no one of us were there. And I take that receipt and the other one, because I'm on both sides. Interesting that the one receipt where I am on the side of the living is a receipt from Super Home Center, which is a Cyprus DIY market. And this is not a very long receipt, maybe just like something where you would buy. I cannot read the details, but I can see definitely the signature Super Home Center. But there may be, would you buy maybe 2 items, a short piece. The other receipt is about the same size, but I can't see what's written there. And it has some holes and the red paint around. I go down into the container and say to the people and show them the receipt and saying, look here, I am alive. And then I show them the other receipt and say, I was dead. The people, of course, look skeptical, not believing. And then I pick up my uniform. And the uniform, it's more strange, looks like an anodized metal cube, which is a bronze color. And the size is about 10 centimeter length. And it has about a 5 or 6 millimeter steel. And it had holes from the bullets. And, you know, this little cube with the colors is like that size. And as well, I show them the other receipt with the red corners representing death. And I talk with them actually in English, so not my native language, but I say, I was dead and I am alive. And I use that to point to the one who was dead and yet he is alive. He's the one who died for our sins. He was dead, yet he is alive. Some of the people there realize and understand of what I am talking, and others don't. But this example that I neither stand on one side nor on the other side shows basically I am neutral. Now, after the shooting, the bread also disappeared and all the food, though I could not see that anyone has taken it. It was claimed as an overwhelming success because not one of the enemies survived, not one. Yet me, as a virtual enemy, survived. One half of myself survived, the other died. All right, so far the dream. Before interpretation, a dream can play in different time zones in the same moment. Now we have 2 armies here, where one is Russia. So what I think Russia might be only metaphorical, because the other group is not specified at all. It may be symbolic Russia might be symbolic for the army, where the propaganda machinery will be defined as the enemy, at least in the Western Hemisphere, for the last big battle. Or it might be a reflection of something in the spiritual realm. Why the great bread with the tons of other food are not being touched, I don't know. But the bread that got multiplied for the soldiers in the trench would lead to a conclusion of a supernatural provision. Why there is only one of this double container on that side and the others have only trenches, it's hard to say. Maybe not to cause too much attention. And it's dark. It's dark. It was really dark. Rain get less. It reminded me of these days today as the world sinks down into darkness, really utter darkness. Insanity, madness, and you name it. Sodom and Gomorrah. As I'm able to see everything, but it might refer rather to a spiritual darkness. I think the man in the dress like the Pope, it might not be the Pope, very likely not be the Pope, because I don't see the Pope as the Antichrist, maybe as a false prophet, but I don't put my hand into that too much. I was not given to see his face nor the skin color, but it was obviously the most significant moment, and especially when he declared himself as God. That leads me to the conclusion, this could be the beast, the Antichrist. He might also wear a white robe, like when he called himself as God. And the stuff is biblical speaking. There's a symbol of authority. We're also from the book of Revelation, we know it was given to him. And the way of style, he was pounding the ground. It appeared to me in the dream of, he might be very impatient, like he want to have it, he want to get it now. Where I assume the devil also extremely impatient to kill, steal, and destroy, to lie and deceive, and he already does it, as there are already many antichrists in the world. I think there's also a reason, something symbolical, why he came close to the container and not to the center of the area, which would actually make more sense, but I'm not 100% sure what the container symbolizes. But that's the only place to escape. Maybe Israel. And the blue, color blue, has some meaning, but I don't know exactly what it is. But at the end, his speech, when he declared himself as God, was the moment for the Russians. He stopped pounding with his staff and he declared himself as God. It was a moment when the enemy came near, going towards the center, which is very interesting, as like a moment of invocation or like a call to maybe the UN army, I don't know. A minute of war is surely not literal, except maybe for the Battle of Armageddon, where the Lord will come with his mighty ones and his faithful ones and defeat the enemy within no time. When after the opening of the fire, or the firing and the dust settle, finish of the shooting, it reminded me a little bit of opening of the seventh seal, when there will be silence for about half an hour. It was no movement, no nothing. I think that would give it possibly a spiritual meaning. I mean, the strange part, of course, is the receipt on the ground instead of people. There was nobody, not one soldier, not one body. And the Pope disappeared. I say Pope, it's easier. Receipt you get when you buy something and you pay for it. If you don't pay, you don't get a receipt. Today, in some countries, you can just walk out and police don't go even after you. But here, metaphorically speaking, I mean, soldiers pay usually with their lives. That's how I understand it. I'm not a military guy. I never went to the military. I never wanted to go, and I never will go. I'm somehow a soldier of Yeshua, but that's a holy battle, not against flesh and blood. So, I mean, today, except the generals and the coward leaders, they hide in their bunkers just giving orders for the cannon fodder to get eaten. The more it gets weird, and both sides are having a receipt from the Super Home Center. But just to explain a little bit, there's often where I bought some of the bits and pieces and material where I had to build or renovate something. And that was in Paphos. This is a DIY market. They have different branches in different cities, at least in Cyprus. Interestingly, that I could clearly see that very clearly written there. More wondering, as this is a form of the living side, since I escaped now from there, and I will not go there anymore since I'm now more than 1,000 miles away from there, and possibly will move further on in the near future. So the other receipt with the red corner, the painting around, I could not specify. I could not identify. I can't explain how the small anodized metal cube can be my uniform. How can anyone fit into a tiny thing? Maybe it's like when Nathanael came to Yeshua and said, how can a man be born again? How can he go back into the mother's womb? Maybe something like that. But there I died. That is, in that uniform I died. So the other has this regular military uniform. I have this bronze type uniform. So it's quite a difference. So that might need some spiritual interpretation. Even for protection, such a small thing would be not very useful. First of all, the bullets penetrated through it with 6mm metal. Quite good, the bullets, but if you have that, even protect your heart. The shooting comes a little from the side, it's useless. And nothing at all protected. I think the only thing in the dream that simply is, in fact, as it is that I'm neutral. I'm neutral in the Russian-Ukraine war. I'm neutral in the Israel-Hamas conflict war. I'm not in all wars. I'm completely neutral. Some wars I'm maybe a little bit, but more or less neutral. I said on both sides, people are dying. And that's the sad part that I don't want to see. Neutral, I say, like in Romans 2:11 says, for there is no partiality with Adonai. Or in Greek, they use the word prosopolepsia. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, but never mind. It's also respect of persons, things like that. I don't understand how I can be on both sides at the same time, but that's possibly in dreams. Can be in several times. I had dreams where I'd be 5 different places at the same time. Yet here, I'm on the same side with the Antichrist, and that's a little bit strange on the other side. And then on the other side at the same time. And the only answer I could give on that would be the sentence where I say, I was dead and I am alive. Because I was dead in past tense and I am alive in present. I was in the world, yet I am now alive in Yeshua, which I use, or in the kingdom of Elohim, which I used to refer in the dream to basically preach the gospel to them in a simple way. Because the Lord Yeshua, who died for us while we were still sinners, and that he became alive, and we can become alive with him. We might die to ourselves that we can become alive in him. Maybe there's more in the dream, maybe, but at the end, with the simple gospel of Yeshua might be the center of the message. And all other things were, maybe it's just decoration, maybe, but I think, yeah, it's more to it. But now it was long enough. If you have listened to the end, you can pray if the Holy Spirit reveals something to you, and if so, feel free to share. Don't fight against each other. It's useless. The enemy is only happy on that. The real enemy, the devil. Yes, we might see soon the Antichrist arrive on stage, though there are many Antichrists already in the world. But be vigilant not to be deceived. And remember, Yeshua died for us that we can live, and more, that we can live with him and be with him forever and ever and ever, in all eternity, in his kingdom. Will there be no war anymore? No more war anymore. Maybe sooner it will be than we think. But enough now. I'll see you maybe on the next video or in the air. I wish you loads of blessings, and Adonai be with you. Shalom, shalom.